Right, here we go with episode 7. This is a very important episode. We're going to add effects in this episode. We're going to add 3 different effects. Those effects are compression, EQ, and reverb. And I've already been through the project on my practice run, and I've decided what I'm going to add, where we're going to add it. Now, I should say that this is not the only way to do this. You can certainly add more effects. You can even add fewer effects. You can add different effects. But the crucial thing that we're looking for is in the assessment criteria, it talks about enhancing the mix. Now, what that translates as is if you put something in and it makes it sound worse, it's no good. Okay, we are looking to improve the overall quality of the mix that we are producing. We have already improved the quality of the mix with the stereo field work that we're going to do. But here are 3 basic effects that I'm going to apply to improve the mix further. Now, one of the most important bits of eSide is the drum track. And at the moment, ours just sounds a little bit weak.
Eastside of the city where the sun goes in. And every day you know that we ride through the back streets of...
Okay, it's nice, it's in time, it's good quality, but it sounds weak. Now, what we could do, of course, is we could just shove the level up, right?
Eastside of the city where the sun goes in.
Make it louder. However, there's a better effect that we can use than just messing around with the fader, and that is compression. Compression evens out differences between top volumes and bottom volumes. Okay, it effectively squashes the top volumes so that they match the bottom volumes better. Now, the impact that that has, particularly on drums, if you even out those dynamics, we tend to get much, much punchier drum sounds. So the first effect that we're going to add is we're going to add compression to our drum track. Now, here's how to do this. Now, I have the drum track selected, okay? It's the active track. Effects appear down here. Now, because that is a MIDI drum track with a drum machine, okay, there are already some panels open to show the controls of that drum machine. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take another effect. We're going to add it into this area here. It says drop audio effect here, and that's going to be our compressor. So a compressor is found under the dynamics section over here. So I've selected audio effects, then pull down dynamics, and you'll see compressor is an option. Pull it down again. You've got lots and lots of different options, okay? These are what's known as presets. Now, for level 2 study, which is what you're doing, it is absolutely fine to be using presets. You don't have to individually tweak all of the parameters and adjust all these controls down here if you don't want to. You can have a play if you wish, but be aware that it's very easy to mess things up if you start getting into that. It's fine to use one of these presets which have been designed to enhance certain things. So there'll be things in there like a compressor designed to reduce the kick drum, for example. There will be ones in here which are specifically designed for acoustic instruments. Okay, so the one that we're going to use the generic compressor, okay, which is here. It's a good plugin. It's really easy to use. It's really easy to adjust as well. Okay, so let's just listen to our drum track before.
Eastside of the city where the sun goes in. And every day you know that we ride through the back streets of Ableton. Baby, you know I...
Okay, particularly want to play this bit.
And come with me, yeah. We can do...
Okay, those 2 hand claps don't really stand out at all at the moment. So I'm going to grab hold of the generic compressor. I'm going to drag it down onto what I'm going to call the effects bar down here. Okay, I'm going to drop it. This is the control for the compressor. Now, there's a lot of controls on here. There's a lot of very scary looking stuff, but there's a visual controller in the middle of this compressor, and it's so useful. It already has made a difference. Listen to this.
Eastside of the city where the sun goes in. And every day you know that we ride through the back streets of Ableton.
Okay, now it hasn't made the signal louder, it's just reduced the difference between the highest and the lowest parts of the signal, and therefore that has made it stand out and sound punchier. Here's the hand clap.
And come with me, yeah. We can do anything.
Okay, they're not louder, but they are already standing out of the mix a little bit more. Now, controls for the compressor. You can turn off the compressor. Okay, if you press this yellow dot here in the corner, it will not do anything. That plugin is no longer being used. If you decide you want to try a different preset, which is fine, like you want to try mildly aggressive, just put it on top and you'll see that the mildly aggressive changes. What does that do actually?
Come with me, yeah. We can do anything if we put our minds to it.
Not much difference, to be honest. Stick with the generic compressor unless you really want to have a play around. Now I said that there's a visual way of adjusting this, and there is. So let's solo the drum track. I'm going to go from about here so we get the hand clap in. Listen to the effect that moving this dot around has. Okay, now getting to the point over here where the level's just too high. I'm going to come back a bit. It's too intense, we don't want to swap out too much. There we go. So I've adjusted the compressor. Let's see how that fits into context. Oh my word, what a difference. Here's the hand clap. What a fantastic effect that effect has had. Okay, so there is the compressor. What do we need to do now? Of course, we take a screenshot. Okay, making sure that you've got the effects bar open at the bottom. Here comes my write-up. Duplicate the last two slides. Take out these screenshots. Put our new screenshot in. Size it up. This will be screenshot 23. What am I doing? Here I'm starting to add effects to my mix. The first thing I wanted to do was to make the drum part pop a little more, as it wasn't very present in the mix. I decided to use a compressor for this, which evens out the differences between the loudest dynamics and the quietest ones. This has the effect of making the part sound louder, punchier, without just turning up the level. I added the generic compressor plugin by dragging it to the effects area at the bottom of the Ableton interface. This plugin, which is the proper name for these, okay, all of these different types of compressors, they are plugins. Okay, this plugin has a visual adjustment interface. So I altered this until I had a good level without pushing the track too much. Okay, there we go. Fantastic. There is our first effect done. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to put that back up here. There we go. Okay, so that's our first effect done. Our next effect is EQ, which stands for equalization. Okay, now equalization is the ice cream sundae metaphor, right? If you've got an ice cream sundae, it might be 70% ice cream, 10% sauce, and what's left over, 20% whipped cream on top. Okay, now if you change the ratios of what you've got, say you go 50% ice cream, 10% sauce and then 40% cream, it's still an ice cream, but it's going to taste different. Now that analogy runs into sound as follows. So if you've got a sound, say you've got your guitar track, that sound will be made up of thousands of different frequencies. Okay, it's not just one single frequency. There'll be loads of them in there. Now, if you adjust which frequencies you can hear, say you increase the bass frequencies, the one at the bottom end, and you reduce the ones at the top, it's still going to be that same sound, but it's going to sound different. It could sound slightly different. It could sound very, very different. Now, we're going to adjust the sound on our guitar tracks, all of them. We've ended up with 6 guitar tracks because of the stereo duplication that we did. We're going to add the same effect to all of them because, do you remember when we added these in, I said I wasn't very happy with the fact that we only really had a basic nylon sound to work with. Okay, it's a bit too pingy, right? It's a bit too nylon. It's a bit too classical, right? The sound that we're copying was a sort of more relaxed, more gentle, rounder, fatter sound. And that's what I'm going to try to recreate here. So we've been in dynamics. EQ and filters has its own section. And there are different libraries within EQ. Okay, now the one that we're going to use, they're actually under EQ3. Right, I don't quite understand how they do these libraries, but I found one that I was happy with. And it's Midnight. Okay, I'm going to solo all of my guitar tracks. And I'm going to add this effect to all of them while it's playing. So you can hear the effect that it has. And it just reduces some of that ping, some of that sharpness, some of that attack. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to pick up Midnight. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to start at the bottom. And work my way up. Adding it to each of these tracks. Can you hear? It's just lost some of that edge. It's a much warmer, rounder sound. Now what Midnight is doing is it's reducing the number of high frequencies within that sound. Now you might decide that you don't want that one. You might decide that you want to use a different preset. That is absolutely fine so long as you can justify it and you can talk about what's going on. I think this already sounds better. Here's the other top parts. Okay, so that is EQ. We have reduced the amount of upper frequency using a preset on that plugin, okay, to make the guitar sound warmer. What do I need to do? Screenshot. Absolutely. Here we go. Let's get rid of Ableton for a second. Do you think I'll be up to speed doing this by now? Okay, this might seem like a lot of project. It is a lot of project. Please remember this is 2 terms work, right? This is not a 5-minute project. It's nearly a year's work. Okay, so this is screenshot 24. Next, I wanted to add EQ or equalization. EQ adjusts the amount of different frequencies that can be heard in a particular sound. You could, for example, boost the bass or reduce the top end to alter the quality of that sound. Here I have added EQ to all of my guitar parts. Why? I did this because I wasn't happy with the sound. I was quite limited with the choice of guitar sounds in Ableton, live intro, and this sound wasn't a great match for the original because it was too Pingy. Let's use it. It's not a word. And bright. I found an EQ preset called Midnight, which vastly reduced the top end frequencies of the tracks and made them sound much darker and warmer. This suited the song much better and made the guitar parts blend better with the synth parts also. There we go. You've explained what EQ is, you've explained why you've used it, you've explained how you've used it. Okay, really important. Last effect, here we go. Reverb. Reverb is short for reverberation. Every enclosed space has reverberation. Okay, whatever space you're in, whether you're in your bedroom at home or you're in a concert hall, if you speak, the sound will be reflected and bouncing off things. In a small room, the reverberation will be relatively small. The sound will come back to you very quickly. In a big room like a concert hall, or going even further like a cave, it will take a lot longer for those sounds to get back to you, and that's where we get that echoey effect. Now be careful with echo. People think that reverb and echo are the same thing. They are not. Echo is a type of reverb. If your space is big enough, the sound will come back to you so much later that you effectively hear it again. Okay, so echo is a type of reverb. They are not just the same thing. What we're going to do is we're going to adjust where the sound sounds like it was recorded. So rather than being recorded in a small room, we can make it sound like it was recorded in a big room, or even vice versa. You can cut off reverberation by putting on a very, very short reverb preset. Now, I've looked through, and there are a couple of places where we could have put reverb on in this track. I debated putting it on the bass part. I debated putting it on the entire song. That is possible. If you want to put an effect on the entire song, you just need to drag it into the master track, and that will apply to everyone. But be very, very careful with that. There's nothing worse than a whole load of fake reverb. So what I've decided to do is I'm actually going to add it to the guitar tracks, which don't play very much. These two. We've got two because of the stereo pairing. Now we've already put our Midnight EQ on those, but I want them to sound a bit more ethereal, a bit more ghost-like. Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Reverb and Resonance, and again you've got a whole load of presets divided into different things. And I mean, you can go crazy. Like there's a cathedral reverb, for example. I'm only going to play one track. We can do anything if we put up. Okay, you hear the effect that that's having? Yeah, that's too much for what we want, but it was a good illustration of what reverb does. Sounds like it's in a much bigger space. Oh, incidentally, I dropped that onto the track. You can drop it onto the track, or you can drop it into the effects area. It will have the same job. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to use, where's the rooms? Okay, there's a nice one called Medium Room. Right, I'm going to add that one instead. I'm going to add it to both of these tracks. You can see that's appeared. Okay, let's hear them in isolation. Just added a bit more warmth, a bit more resonance, and a bit more length. Okay, the gaps between the notes have disappeared somewhat, and I think that works quite nicely. We can do anything if we put our minds to it. Take your whole life, then you put a line through it. My love is yours if you're willing to take it. Give me your heart, 'cause I ain't gonna break it. So come on. Now, what I would probably do is when we get to leveling, which is the next video, I'm probably going to turn them down a little bit because they're a little bit too present now. The reverb has meant that they're carrying on a bit longer, and so they're a bit more obvious. May even go back and change the panning location now that we've added some effects. But that will be the next video. What do we need to do? Screenshot, of course. This will be screenshot 25. Losing track of my screenshots again on my desktop. just got too many. There we go. It's effectively the same screenshot, actually. It's just gained one extra. Is that right? Yeah. The only difference between those screenshots is the reverb has been added. What was it? Screenshot 25. The next effect I wanted to use was reverb. This is short for reverberation and can be found in any enclosed space. Larger spaces will have more reverb than smaller ones, and we can use the DAW, Digital Audio Workstation, to make tracks sound like they were recorded in different locations than they really were, or enhance artificially created tracks. Okay, I decided to add reverb only to the guitar track that plays briefly in the middle of the song. I wanted a more ethereal, ghost-like quality to match the original, and adding some subtle reverb helped me to achieve that. There we go. So we've added 3 effects. We've added compression, we've added EQ, we've added reverb. You can add more. Okay, you can add more of those 3. But there's a very funny bit in the marking criteria for Unit 7. And as a result, I would like you to put in a little extra section at this stage. Other effects and other effect uses. Okay. Because in order to get a distinction on the final marking criterion, you have to talk about other effects and other uses that you haven't used. Okay, which might seem a bit strange, but that's what they're asking for. There are many other effects that can be used in most DAWs. Another example would be delay, which is where a sound is repeated at a set interval from the original. This is common in dance music and other electronic music, and works especially well on guitar tracks. You can also use the effects that I have used here for other purposes. For example, because EQ is a frequency filter, you can remove nearly all of the frequencies in a sound, as a telephone does, and make it sound like sound is coming through a telephone. This could be useful in a song where you want some of the lyrics to sound like they are coming on a phone call. You can also, phone call is 2 words. You can also create vintage effects like recreating vinyl using EQ to give your recording an older sound. Okay, there we go. So straight away, you've demonstrated your effects yourself. You've also talked about other effects in the form of delay. You could talk about distortion, for example, on electric guitars. There are lots and lots of type of effects for you to look at. And then I've just gone a step further and explained one of the standard effects that we use, how we could develop that. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the effects section. We only have one more episode to go, which is a final balance and then creating the fade outs at the end of the project, because we've got much more music than we need. We're going to create a proper fade out, and I shall see you for that final episode next time. Don't forget to write up as you go along.